time meditating before I decided to give this remote view and to try and help people see things the way I am seeing them regarding what's going on in Israel right now, Israel, Gaza. There's a lot of misinformation. So let me see if I can help. A couple of months ago, we did a remote view on Vladimir Putin, and he said that he could get cheaper fighters out of Africa. And we've talked about the fact that there is a lot of civil unrest right now in Africa because trade and trade deals are being negotiated and new trade routes are being formed. China and Russia are both creating new trade routes to get around the Saudi controlled trade routes. You think about the Silk Road, the fact that there were Arab blocs. People discovered America, right, by trying to get around these blocks, right? So hundreds of years of this going on. In many ways, it's cheaper for Putin to declare war in the Middle East than it is for him to declare war in the Ukraine because he can get cheaper fighters in the Sudan. So Egypt has been going through its own civil war, like Tunisia, the Arab Spring, where you have secularists and intellectuals fighting their fight, and then you have religious extremists fighting their fight. And the people voted for Morsi, and Morsi was a religious extremist. And they had talked about blowing up the pyramids because they thought the pyramids were sacrilegious. At that point, the intellectuals, the people that were in touch with reality, decided that they were going to work with the military to take down Morsi, even though Morsi had been democratically elected, because they realized that this extremism was a threat to the entire area. And so Sisi and the military came in. The military came in under Sisi in Egypt. And it brought down, theoretically, Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood and these extremist groups that had developed a relationship with Hamas and militant groups inside Gaza. So now we come to the remote view I'm going to give you. And that is, we have a major breach in the Egyptian military. Partly because they're sympathetic to Morsi and they're sympathetic to the cause, Islamic Jihad, Islamic Brotherhood, Hamas. But in most cases, it's money. Money to get weapons through certain ports. Port Said, to get weapons through the southern border. People are being paid. People are being paid to look away. If you don't pay a soldier that much, if you don't pay a border person that much, they may be willing to take a bribe. And so foreign fighters paid for with foreign money, mostly Iranian, but also Russian money. These fighters and these weapons have entered in through the southern border in Israel and also weapons through the ports. And that is, and then they are put together and then they fire on the Israelis. Now, a couple of bad things happened to Israel when the Soviet Union collapsed. But even before the Soviet Union collapsed, people with high security clearance were given the right to, they were called refuseniks. They were refused visas to go to Israel because they had high security clearance. Maybe they were working in Russian intelligence. Well, during those immigrations, Israel experienced a major breach in her security. Not everybody that immigrated to Israel had Israel's interest at heart. And so what happened was you had 500,000, more, I think maybe 1,000,000 now, but hundreds of thousands of Russians moving to Israel, some of them not Jewish, some of them uh, working for the Kremlin, and some of them Jewish and working for the Kremlin. But what happened was we had a security breach. And that security breach was really Putin. Putin got very, very deep into Israeli intelligence, in Israeli security. And he also compromised many people in the Knesset. Some believe Netanyahu may be compromised. So Putin gave a statement, I think it was a couple hours recently, today, where he basically laughed at Israeli and American security, saying that he knew everything. Putin is an ally of Iran. Putin is not an ally of Israel. Putin is not a friend of Israel. Putin has never been a friend of Israel's. And Israel has become increasingly right-wing because it has been compromised, because these people have infiltrated and influenced the politics, influenced views of Putin, taken on extreme right-wing political opinions, just like the Trumpsters. And yet they couldn't protect Israel from an attack that Putin knew about. Putin appears to be claiming he knew about. So how did Putin know, but Netanyahu didn't know? So what Putin is saying is, my security is so superior to the United States and Israel that I not only knew about the attack, but I was able to disseminate such competent disinformation to the Israelis and the Americans that you thought it wasn't going to happen. Because the Israelis had gotten a heads up, but then their security told them it was a false flag. So what Putin is saying is he put that rumor up that it was a false flag. He was so deep in Israeli intelligence, he was so deep in their security, he was able to manipulate their impressions of what was going on. This is how to interpret what Putin is saying. So Putin served in Berlin, East Berlin. So you have two sides of the Gaza, right? You have the wall, which is the Gaza side, and you have the Israeli side, right? North, south. My concern is that this is precisely what Putin is going to do. He's going to create a huge security problem at that area, and it's going to become a no man's land between the East and the West. That is what Putin is attempting to do. And the reason he's going to be able to continuously bring in new fighters is because he and the Iranians are paying foreign fighters. Meanwhile, the innocent people, the Palestinians, when the Israelis left, 30 years ago? And the Iranians came in and Hamas came in. Meanwhile, they're just trying to live there. And I also think there's an element of Stockholm syndrome if you are in that situation. But I think that the Israelis will go in and I think that they will hold the area long term. I think that because Putin wants to keep pouring cheap foreign fighters into the area, he is trying to drive NATO into the area, which is interesting. It's as if he wants to bring America into this war. And that is interesting to me. The main reason being because it is more affordable than the war in Ukraine. It's an interesting way of viewing it. All right, in terms of how it will end, it's interesting. You know, you put yourself in the shoes of the Palestinians, the average Palestinian citizen, and this comes from somewhere else, right? This is coming from Iran and Russia. It's being fueled by some foreign. Also, China gives military assistance to Hamas. There's some link there. So you have these foreign influences coming in. Meanwhile, the people themselves are fodder in the middle of this war zone. So a percentage of the people support it, but a large percentage do not. And many people are afraid to say that. So I think it's going to have to be a global response to Iran and Qatar, but specifically Iran, because all and Russia, but much of this is coming from Iran. And if we don't address that, we will not be able to deal with this problem. So for that reason, I think Israel will start to be much more aggressive against Iran. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Be well.